Deutsche Bank has started to lay off thousands of staff as the global banking system continues to see massive dysfunction. And how does Bitcoin react to that news? 7% gain today. Singapore looks set to welcome crypto into retail payments, and South Korea simply cannot get enough of crypto. A big thank you to today's sponsor, liquid.com, which is one of the most secure and regulated cryptocurrency exchanges in Japan. Liquid.com will be hosting the initial public offering of Telegram's Gram token on their platform. Reports from Bloomberg indicate that the tokens will be debuting at $4, which is around 3x of the private sale price. They'll be released in quarterly batches after the main net launch later this year. The sale is kicking off on July 10th for anyone who is interested in getting some tokens to use on the Telegram platform when it goes live with blockchain. Now let's start off with Singapore, where the tax agency has proposed to remove the goods and services tax from cryptocurrency transactions that function or are aimed to function as a medium of exchange, which is big news. These are the exact kind of positive regulations that we need for cryptocurrency to go mainstream as a form of money. And this has been one of the biggest gripes of many people in the cryptocurrency community, that Bitcoin or cryptocurrencies overall has a hard time working as money because of the additional tax obligations that governments are putting on top of it. Now look guys, obviously this is only Singapore and is only a proposal, not an official law yet. Hopefully though, this will pass and we will see others following Singapore's lead. Notably though, the agency did specify that stable coins backed by fiat may not qualify to be GST exempt. So this is truly about welcoming decentralized cryptocurrency as a form of payment. Bitcoin, Litecoin, the Dogecoin, and many others. You'll be curious, of course, to see if crypto stablecoins like DAI end up being exempted from GST or not. Over in South Korea, crypto is booming again. Last week I reported on the rise of the kimchi premium, where South Koreans are paying more than anyone else in the world for cryptocurrencies, has come back, and now we have news that a subsidiary of SK Group, one of the largest conglomerates in South Korea, which also happens to run South Korea's biggest telecom company, SK Telecom, they are going to be investing in a crypto fund created by Consensus. Reports say that SK will invest up to $90 million in the venture. And this is just another story to put in the big bag of stories that proves that big money players are piling into crypto right now. And of course, this follows news from earlier in the year that Kakao, which has around 90% of the market share of the messaging app market in South Korea, is making their own blockchain project, which we called Klatin, or Samsung's announcement last year about getting into the Bitcoin mining chip manufacturing game. And of course, locally, projects like Icon have been nailing high-level partnerships with the Korean government. And so many more stories on top of that, so really bullish news coming out of South Korea. Okay guys, let's get on to today's big story, Deutsche Bank. Deutsche Bank is laying off 18,000 employees and will be axing its investment bank arm in an attempt to save itself from collapse. DB is Germany's biggest bank, and it is the world's 15th largest commercial bank by total assets. But while it is a German bank, like all of the members of the global banking mafia, it has its fingers in pies all over the world. Jobs will be cut from Sydney to Stockholm to New York. All of this restructuring, though, will probably be too little, too late for DB. The IMF calls Deutsche Bank the biggest risk to the entire global banking system. Although, funnily, the US Federal Reserve said that Deutsche Bank had passed the central bank's stress test that examined its ability to, weather another financial crisis like we saw in 2008. And I call BS on that, Federal Reserve. Remember that the big ratings agencies, they all said that everything was totally fine with the big banks right before the global financial crisis happened in 2008. Why would anyone trust the Fed's opinion on this matter is beyond me. By the way, Deutsche Bank got $364 billion from the US Fed after 2008 and $79 billion from the German government. It's sick, isn't it? Currently, Deutsche Bank has $49 trillion in derivatives. Yes, I said trillion, not billion, which is more than JP Morgan, Citigroup, or Goldman Sachs, all of which have 40 plus trillion in derivatives, but Deutsche Bank's number one. And much of the derivatives market is super, super incestuous with so much exposure to each other that if one goes down, they are all in big, big doo-doo. To put that in perspective for you, the global GDP in 2018 was only $80 trillion combined. Just these four banks have twice that amount in derivatives alone. God, what a sick joke these banks are. It's crazy, guys. Now, adding into that nightmarish mess that Deutsche Bank has basically been a giant laundromat for money, which of course I find hilarious because remember, governments keep proposing to take away your rights because they say that they are afraid of you laundering money. But the big banks, they're the number one money launderers. They launder money every day, and everyone knows about it. And when they gamble too much, the governments use your money to ensure that the banks can keep gambling, keep making money, and keep laundering money. The system is irreparably broken. So the question must be asked, of course, will Deutsche Bank crash and take the entire global economy to the brink of oblivion with it? Maybe. But even if Deutsche Bank does not crash this year or next year, you need to understand that what Deutsche Bank is doing, it is business as usual for banks. The 2008 global financial crisis was not an aberration. This is the standard operating procedure of these organizations. Fraud is their business model. They are the number one money launderers in the world. They gamble with your money. And when they crash the economy again, and they will, they're going to say that, well, we're too big to fail. Pay us a bunch of money or everybody's going to suffer terribly. That's a broken system, guys. Banks are really nothing more than a mafia-like cartel at this point. Central banks and the corrupt commercial banks, they're never going to make the world a better place. Central banks are totally incapable of dealing with the global economy, either out of complete ineptness or criminal intent. Currently, 40% of bonds now produce negative yields. The ECB will probably push yields even lower, meaning that Deutsche Bank's collapse is even more certain. Even the riskiest bonds are only yielding less than 2% at the moment, with many bonds, of course, now yielding negative percentages, which really only puts more pressure on these commercial banks because their free money flow is getting cut off. And you know, guys, everyone is talking about Deutsche Bank, but it is not the only sick bank in town. Most major commercial banks are in deep trouble. The effect of even one of these banks going under will start a massive domino effect, which will likely kill one bank after another bank after another bank unless they get bailed out with your money. And hey, it does kind of sound cool that all the banks are going to go under until you realize just how devastating that will be, at least for all of the no-coiners out there. Millions of jobs will be lost. Houses will be foreclosed on. More austerity for you and me. Governments will probably buy up the bad debt from the banks, passing a bigger debt burden onto you and your children, who will again have to foot the bill for the banks. It will be a total mess. These damn banks, man, they never stop. They have spent the last decade gambling on the global economy again. Of course they did. Derivatives have gone insane. There is a nearly weekly money laundering scandal, or a scandal about the banks rigging rates in their favor, or a scandal about banks actively colluding to screw over their customers. And is there ever any punishment for the bankers? Of course there isn't. It's crazy. They buy the politicians. They own the politicians in every single country. And as the ship goes down, the executives of these banks, they're all heading for the exit with big golden parachutes worth millions of dollars. And all of that is happening at the same time that the big economic indicator, which has basically predicted every major recession since the 1960s, is sending up warning flares. That is the US Treasury yield curve, which when inverted is considered by many to be a very reliable indicator of a coming recession. The curve has now been inverted for a financial quarter. The USA is looking for more quantitative easing. The European Central Bank is looking for more quantitative easing. Australia is considering it, and many other countries are considering it. Basically just printing money to try to save themselves. The trade wars are getting super ugly at the moment, as the US is expanding the battlefront to the EU while continuing to wage a severe trade war with China. Morgan Stanley has turned bearish on global stocks, cutting its global equities allocation to the lowest in 5 years, and has also downgraded its investment recommendations. Morgan Stanley has said that the outlook for stocks over the next 3 months looks particularly poor. I wonder where some of that money is going to start going, if not into bonds, and if not into stocks. Maybe some of it's going to go into gold, but to be honest, guys, if everything that I just described to you, and that's just the tip of the iceberg, everything I just described to you makes you feel like the global economy is a giant dumpster fire, then there is good news. There is a way to actively vote yourself out of this hopelessly corrupt and broken system. Buy Bitcoin. Just look at how Bitcoin reacted to the start of the layoffs from the struggling banking giant Deutsche Bank. It's up 7% today. Bitcoin was made as a direct challenge to the broken banking system. Every Satoshi that we buy is a vote against the broken fiat system and the corrupt banks that represent it. Anyone not buying Bitcoin these days? You must be crazy, guys. Bitcoin has shown time and time again that it thrives in the turmoil of the global economic dysfunction. If we are truly gearing up for another big crash, and at this point it really seems like we are, then Bitcoin is going to save a lot of people, or at least the people who have Bitcoin, of course. Anyway, guys, just some updates for you on the global situation, the downfall of Deutsche Bank and all that stuff, and why Bitcoin is potentially one of the things that is going to bail a lot of people out of this global economic dysfunction. You let me know your thoughts about all of this down below in the comment section, guys. Thank you so much for watching today's video. If you did enjoy it, leave a thumbs up on it. Make sure to come over and join our Telegram group. We're always having a good time over there chatting about all things crypto related. Love to see you over there. And of course, if you're new around here, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Click that notification bell. You guys know the drill. Long live the blockchain. And peace out till next time.